Chapter 23 H-Hunter Invasion. The usual, of course. I own nothing here with the exception of Violet, Shadow, and the H-Hunters. Everything else belongs to Capcom, and I am not earning one single cent from the story. Things had finally settled down at the confrontation with Shadow, and once again the main core of the Maverick Hunters found themselves in the command room under the glare of a very angry Cygnus. Upset as he was at the whole ordeal, he couldn't really blame them either. Shadow, for whatever reason, had brought it on himself. This also worried the Maverick Hunter Commander-in-Chief, as he started to wonder if this had been the mysterious Reploid's intentions all along. Together, Hunters could tell something was bothering the leader, but they didn't really inquire about it. They had bigger things to worry about. Alright, there are no further interruptions, Cygnus said, a low growl to his voice. Even glanced around the room to make sure there were no objections with a nod of approval, Cygnus turned back to Zero, Iris, and Alia. As I was trying to say before the interruption, now that we have the H-Hunter's location, it's time we finally go and take care of the remaining H-Hunters. They've been a thorn in our side for too long, and since we've yet to find any more evidence of them being in possession of nukes, we have to assume that if they're hurting them at Memorial Lagoon, the commander explained. Seal looked over his comrades, his adrenaline still pumping from his little scuffle with Shadow. He was definitely ready for a fight to keep him occupied until time for his deal against the arrogant Reploid. Iris came up to Zero and put a reassuring hand on his and gazed into his eye, which seemed to lighten the Crimson Killer up a little. They were only working with 3 incapacities since Ike was still in for repairs, and finally wouldn't leave his side. Zero finally broke his gaze from Iris and looked at Alia, who gave him a nod. He saw a fierce fight in her eyes, a familiar fight he would see time and again when X was about to charge into combat. The death of his best friend had changed that poor woman in a way that no one should have ever had to be changed. A change he felt at one time him, as he pulled Iris close to him, remembered the feeling. It's all up to you 3 now. Good luck, Cygnus said, giving them a salute. Giving the commander a salute in return, the 3 then teleported from the Maverick Hunter headquarters. Good luck and may fortune shine on you all, the commander whispered to himself, knowing they were going in for the fight of their lives. Point 5567, Memorial Lagoon. The Hunter trio landed at the memorial and looked around. A sort of museum had been set up in the times of the Rebel Force War, containing pieces of the crashed Sky Lagoon itself, as well as various weapons, techs, Reploid, and mechanoid pieces. The place was definitely a haunting reminder to Zero and Iris, and despite Alia not having been present during the Infinity Question, she could definitely understand just by looking through the various displays in the museum where it hunted her 2 partners. While nowhere near as brutal as the space colony crash, it was still pretty horrendous looking from the various things enclosed in cases and painting from that day. Alia turned to look at Zero and Iris. These arcs of fire depict the area just after the Sky Lagoon crash. Was it really that horrifying? She questioned. Zero and Iris approached her and looked over several of the paintings and shook his head. It was far, far worse. So much death. The heat of the flames. The damned city and surrounding areas. The scorched earth. Even magnifying the imagined horror this is supposed to create by Hunter doesn't do it justice, Alice explained. Zero nodded, agreeing with his other half. The closest thing to compare to would be the Eurasia crash. Sure, this wasn't as bad, but it gives you an idea. Nothing such as this could ever catch the true feeling of that event, Zero offered in return. Ayla shuddered at the thought. She had been around for the Eurasia crash. It was her first time ever working with the Maverick Hunters, but Ayla believed Zero remembering the horror that whole thing had caused. We should move on. If the H-Hunters are in fact using this place as a base, and possible missile storage, they wouldn't make it obvious. My guess is below ground where they keep the biggest parts of the lagoon's wreckage, Zero explained. With a nod, the 3 of them started to move toward the elevator in the main lobby and called it forth. They stepped inside and Zero hit the button for sub-basement 3. Normally, only otherwise personnel were allowed in here, such as the Maverick Hunters, or other government branches, which meant if the H-Hunters were in fact using this place as a base, they were getting into the area by another means so they could avoid detection. Finally, the elevator came to a halt and opened into a large wide room. It was as large as a stadium underneath a museum, scattered around with the largest pieces recovered from the floating city. Zero looked him over, knowing he had to have passed them, or at least a majority of them when he was trying to assist at the crash. Suddenly, the lights clicked and came on in a blinding flash. Zero looked around shocked and found Iris in that looked like a true panel. She shrank back a little. Sorry, she said. She let out with a small meep, knowing she made a mistake. She hadn't intended to turn the lights on since they were infiltrating, but it revealed something to them. At the back of the room, chained to a wall, were the remains of the dragon-designed mechanoid that had attacked Iris and Cyril through the fall. The trio approached the wall, and Ayla gazed at it in awe. Iris shivered and pressed herself against Cyril, who held her close. I never want to see that thing again, Iris said with a shaky voice. You saw this thing before it was like this? Ayla wondered to her two companions. Yeah, it was I was who retired it, Cyril said from starting off. Myself and I left the Sky Lagoon just before it crashed to the surface, and landed safely after impact. We moved through the wreckage, and when we came across Iris, who was injured, Axe went on ahead to help with civilian aid. That's when this thing attacked us, the Crimson Killer finished. Before Ayla could speak again, though, Hero heard something out of place and held up his finger to silence his team. Iris and Ayla gave him a puzzled stare as he started to slowly move toward the giant mechanoid. When he reached the wall, Cyril pressed against the wall, putting his ear to it and running his hands against it. After several moments, he found what he was looking for. With a loud audible click, several gear mechanisms could be heard echoing in the room as the wall with the dragon started to slowly turn slightly. After a moment, there was a large gap in the wall leading to an entirely new area. With a thumbs up to the ladies, they moved to Cyril and they stepped through the opening. The room was a large corridor splitting off at the ends. The walls were covered in various lights and computer devices. The color scheme itself was a solid silver color that was reflective. Here we are. I do believe we have infiltrated the 800 space of operations, Cyril said. This garnered a grin from all three of them as they stared it down the corridor. A move that startled Alien Iris. Cyril threw his hand out and held the fence and pressed him tightly against the wall as he did the same. A small hovering mechanoid with green scanners pouring out in all directions soon by. To be expected. Guarded, but not well. They don't have anything armed. The H-Hunters are way too overconfident for their own good, even after we've killed most of their number, Cyril said, clearly agitated. When the Crimson Killer gave the all-clear, they resumed their advance on the corridor, which branched out into a fork. Cyril hated the idea of splitting up, especially given how their luck had been lately, but they needed to cover as much ground as they could as quickly as possible. Alright, I hate to do this, but we need to split up. I will go down the left corridor, and you two will take the right. Maintain radio silence at all times, unless in an absolute emergency, Cyril ordered. Out the field, they were the closest of friends. Basically a family, and it scared them as well to split up. Especially Iris, who didn't want to be part of them. Cyril, remembering always in fence, but on the field, he was the leader. The general and he had given a direct order, and they couldn't disobey. Cyril turned to the two of them, a serious but concerned tone in his face. Please, you two, stay safe. I don't want to lose anyone else if I can help it, Cyril said, his face going soft. The two ladies nodded at Cyril, and despite her strongest urges, Iris refrained from just leaving at Cyril and kissing him before going a different path from him, but they didn't want to accidentally be caught unawares. Without another word or look, Cyril turned and started his way down the corridor. He had chosen Alien Iris did the same. Ayla looked over her shoulder at her partner and gave her a reassuring grin, knowing she was worried. He's made it through so much so far. I don't think this would be the thing to do him in, Ayla offered encouragement. Iris grinned at her friend, and while her fears weren't entirely relieved, simply because she had just a feeling of dread, what she had said did make sense, and it put Iris's mind a little more at ease. Here we are at last, everyone. The story finally continues. I would like to thank you all for the support I have still received over time with this story. It is as always my inspiration to return to it no matter how long it has been since my last update. I know I have said it before, but this time I really am going to try and stick up with updating till I get to the end. I owe it all to you for all the love I have received for this story, even if my writing isn't the best. So to all of you, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the reviews, faves, and follows. As always, Arnold, no matter what you have to say, it all helps me to become a better writer after all. I would also like to invite all my members to check out my YouTube endeavors. I have the links to my channels posted on my profile, and any support I can get there as well is really appreciated. Till next time, my peeps.